The first time I almost died, I wrote it off as a bizarre accident. The second time, I started to suspect my husband was trying to kill me. The thought was so monstrous, so alien, that my mind recoiled from it, trying to bury it under a mountain of rationalizations. But the seed of dread had been planted, and in the quiet, dark hours of the night, it took root and began to grow. My name is Clara, 29, and I've been married to Matt, 32, for 6 years. We have a 4-year-old son, Leo. On the surface, our life was a picture of success, a glossy advertisement for the perfect modern family. Matt was the brilliant, charismatic co-founder and CEO of a tech startup called Ethereum, a company he built from the ground up with his older brother, Ryan, 35, who served as the CFO. I was a high-powered partner at a prestigious corporate law firm, Sterling & Grant. Our success was intertwined. I'd even consulted on their early contracts. We lived in a stunning minimalist house of glass and steel, perched on a cliffside with panoramic ocean views, the kind of property featured in architectural magazines. This entire life, this beautiful cage, was funded by a massive influx of venture capital Matt and Ryan had secured a year prior, a deal worth tens of millions that had catapulted them into the stratosphere. The problem started subtly about 6 months ago. Matt became distant, emotionally absent. He was physically there, but his mind was always elsewhere. The stress, he claimed, was from the pressure of the upcoming flagship product launch and the constant, suffocating scrutiny from their investors, who were demanding exponential returns. He started working late with Ryan almost every night, their strategy sessions stretching into the early morning hours. He began coming home smelling of expensive whiskey and cigar smoke instead of coffee and whiteboard markers. When I tried to bridge the gap, to touch his arm or ask about his day, he would flinch away, his smile a tight, practiced thing that never reached his eyes. The man I loved was being replaced by a haunted, impatient stranger. The first accident happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home, finalizing a complex merger agreement. Leo was at preschool. The house was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Suddenly, the power in my home office abruptly died, plunging the room into gray twilight. My computer screen went black. Annoyed, I grabbed my phone for its flashlight and headed to the basement to check the circuit breaker. The basement stairs were solid oak, custom-built. I'd walked them 1,000 times. But as I placed my weight on the third step from the top, it gave way with a sickening, splintering crack. It wasn't a stumble, it was a collapse. The wood disintegrated beneath my feet and I fell hard, tumbling down the steep flight into the concrete-floored basement below. I lay there for a moment, stunned, the wind knocked out of me, pain screaming from my wrist and ankle. I was lucky. The doctor later said it was a severe sprain in my wrist and a hairline fracture in my ankle, along with a spectacular map of purple and yellow bruises across my back and legs. The contractor we hired to fix it was a grizzled, no-nonsense man named Frank. He emerged from the basement, his face grim. "Mrs. Sterling," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "That main support beam for that section of stairs. It didn't just rot. It was sawed through. Almost all the way. Just a thin veneer of wood and a bit of paint was holding it in place. It was a miracle it held as long as it did." We stood there, staring at the gaping hole in the staircase. We blamed shoddy workmanship from the original builders, a terrifying oversight. We fired them, hired Frank, and I tried to forget the cold knot of fear in my stomach. The second incident was a month later, on a bright, sunny Friday. I was driving Leo home from preschool. We were singing along to a children's CD, his little voice chirping happily from the back seat. The route home involved a long, steep hill. As I pressed the brake pedal to slow our descent, the foot went straight to the floor with a soft, sickening hiss. There was no resistance. Nothing. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through me. Hold on, baby. I yelled to Leo, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. I pumped the brake frantically, but it was useless. The car, a heavy, reliable SUV, picked up speed, hurtling down the hill towards a busy intersection at the bottom. I wrenched the wheel, aiming for a thick, manicured hedge lining the road. The world became a roaring, scraping blur of green as we plowed through it, the car finally shuddering to a violent stop, the front bumper embedded in a brick garden wall just feet from the crosswalk. Leo was screaming. I was trembling so hard I could barely unbuckle my seatbelt to get to him. The mechanic, a family friend named Joe, was pale and solemn when he called me later. "Clara," he said, his voice low. The brake line wasn't worn. It was nicked. Deliberately. A fine, precise cut. It would cause a slow leak, building pressure until a total failure happened precisely when you needed them most, like on a downhill drive. That's when the cold dread solidified into a terrifying certainty. This was no accident. Someone had done this. And the only person who had regular, unsupervised access to my car was my husband. I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, after putting a traumatized Leo to bed, I confronted Matt in his study. He was sipping a scotch, staring out at the dark ocean. "Matt, we need to talk. About the stairs. About the car." My voice was trembling. I laid out my fears, the contractor's words, the mechanic's verdict. Someone is trying to hurt me. To kill me. He turned from the window, his face a mask of concern. He came over, held me, his embrace feeling like a trap. "Clara, honey, you're being paranoid," he murmured into my hair. "The stress from your job, from being a mom. It's getting to you." It was a faulty beam and a rusty brake line. Terrible, horrible luck, but just that. Luck. He suggested gently that I take a vacation. "We're so close to the finish line with Ethereum," he cooed. "Maybe you just need to relax. Go to a spa. All this pressure. It's making you see ghosts." He was so calm, so reasonable, his logic smooth and polished like river stones. For a moment I wanted to believe him, to sink back into the comforting lie of normalcy. But then I looked into his eyes and I saw it. Not concern, but a flicker of cold, sharp calculation. The mask had slipped for just an instant, but it was enough. I decided to investigate on my own. I started small, a ghost in my own home. I went through the pockets of Matt's old jackets hanging in the guest closet and found a crumpled receipt from a boutique jewelry store, La Perla Gioielli, for a diamond necklace, purchased 2 months ago, right around our anniversary. It was a stunning Art Deco piece I had admired in a magazine. It was never given to me. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. I began checking our shared credit card statements, the ones he thought I never looked at, and found recurring bi-weekly charges for the Opal Suite at the Grand Imperial Hotel downtown, always on Thursday nights, the nights he claimed to be working late with Ryan. An affair was the simplest, most painful answer. Maybe he just wanted me out of the picture to be with his mistress. The thought was devastating, a bone-deep ache of betrayal, but it felt almost mundane, more palatable than the alternative of a husband who methodically, coldly wanted his wife dead. I couldn't do this alone. I hired a discreet ex-military private investigator named David Croft. He was a large, quiet man with calm eyes that missed nothing. Within a week he had photos. Crisp, high-resolution photos of Matt and Isla, Ryan's wife, entering the Grand Imperial Hotel together, hand in hand. Photos of them kissing with desperate passion in a dimly lit parking garage. Photos of them having an intimate dinner at a secluded restaurant, their heads close together. The betrayal was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. It wasn't just a random woman from the office. It was my sister-in-law. The woman I had confided in about Matt's distance. The woman who had hugged me over coffee and told me with sympathetic tears in her eyes that everything would be okay, that men just go through phases. The layers of deceit were staggering, a nest of vipers. But Croft dug deeper following the money trail. He uncovered a labyrinth of financial records, shell companies with names like Horizon Holdings and Peregrine Investments, and massive unauthorized transfers from Ethereum's accounts into these entities, which then funneled the money into numbered accounts in the Cayman Islands. He discovered a $2 million life insurance policy Matt had taken out on me, just 3 months prior, with a double indemnity clause for accidental death. The pieces of the puzzle were clicking into a horrifying, undeniable picture. This wasn't just about illicit passion. It was about insatiable greed. Matt and Ryan were systematically bleeding their own company dry, and with me, the sharp, suspicious lawyer wife, out of the way, Matt would get the multi-million-dollar life insurance payout, sever his most intimate tie, and be free to be with Isla, all while Ryan presumably got a larger, cleaner share of the plundered company funds. My murder was not a crime of passion. It was a cold, calculated business decision. I knew I had to act fast. Confronting Matt directly would be signing my own death warrant. I needed irrefutable proof, and I needed to secure my and Leo's safety immediately. I went to the one person I thought might be an unwitting pawn, or at least a weaker link. Ryan. I arranged to meet him at a neutral public place, a loud, bustling coffee shop in the city's financial district, far from our usual haunts. He arrived looking harried, his suit jacket wrinkled. "Clara, what's this about?" "I've got a board call in 20, he said, sliding into the booth opposite me. I didn't offer any pleasantries. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I know about the embezzlement, Ryan. The shell companies, Horizon Holdings, Peregrine, and I know about Matt and Isla." He stared at me, his face cycling through shock, panic, and finally a grim, defeated resignation. He slumped back in his seat, the fight draining out of him. He didn't deny it. Instead, he started talking, his voice low and frantic, his eyes darting around the cafe. "Clara, you have to believe me, I never knew about the accidents. The stairs, the car." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Matt told me you were getting suspicious about the money, that you were sniffing around the company books. He said you were going to expose us to the regulators and the investors, that you would ruin everything we'd built and send us both to prison for decades. He said we had to pressure you, to make you seem unstable, emotionally volatile, so that if you did go to the authorities, no one would believe you." He ran a hand through his hair, his expression genuinely horrified. "I thought he was just talking about gaslighting you, making you doubt your sanity. I agreed to it, God help me. I was scared. But I didn't know he was trying to kill you. My God. What has he done?" He confessed everything in a rushed, panicked whisper. The embezzlement was his idea, a way to cash out and secure their futures before their volatile, overhyped company potentially crashed and burned. Matt had brought Isla into the scheme, using their affair as both a thrill and leverage. She helped forge invoices and approve payments. Ryan claimed he was in too deep, terrified of the financial and professional ruin, terrified of going to prison. As a sign of good faith, or more likely to save his own skin, he gave me access to a hidden, encrypted cloud drive. It contained everything: the complete financial records, the forged documents, the transfer logs, and even a few incriminating text messages between Matt and Isla, one of which chillingly discussed my escalating nervous breakdown, and how it would be a mercy for everyone if she just checked out. It was a treasure trove of evidence. But I didn't trust Ryan. His remorse seemed convenient, triggered more by the revelation of murder attempts than the crime of theft. I thanked him coldly, took the access codes, and left him sitting there, a broken man in a busy coffee shop. That night, I put my final plan into motion. I packed a single bag for Leo and me, taking only essentials and the external hard drive containing all the evidence. I drove him to my parents' house under the guise of a surprise weekend visit, my mother's face lighting up at the sight of her grandson. I didn't tell them the truth. I couldn't burden them with that terror yet. I just said I had a work emergency and needed their help. Then with Leo safe, I drove back home. The house felt like a stage set for a tragedy. I stood in the silent living room, the floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting my pale, determined face. I called Matt. He answered on the third ring, the sounds of a bar or a club in the background. Clara? What is it? I know everything, Matt, I said, my voice eerily calm. The embezzlement. The affair with Isla. The stairs. Her. I have all the evidence. The financial records, the texts, everything. I'm taking it all to the police and the Ethereum board first thing in the morning. I expected panic, furious denials, desperate threats. Instead, there was a chilling, dead silence on the other end of the line, so profound I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then his voice came through, stripped of all pretense, cold and flat as a blade. Stay in the house, Clara. Don't do anything stupid. We need to talk about this like adults. Ryan and I are on our way over. We can fix this. I knew with every fiber of my being that they weren't coming to talk. They were coming to silence me forever. I ended the call, my hands shaking. First, I called the police, my voice steady as I spoke to the dispatcher. My name is Clara Sterling. I live at 14 Cliffside Drive. My husband and his brother are on their way here to kill me. They have already attempted twice. I have evidence of embezzlement and a conspiracy to commit murder. I gave them the quick, brutal facts. Then I did something reckless, something born of a desperate need for final, undeniable proof. I set my phone to record video and hid it on a bookshelf, its lens peeking between two large volumes, capturing the entire living room. Then I waited. The minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. I didn't have a weapon. I just had the truth. 20 minutes later, I heard the key in the lock. The front door burst open, slamming against the wall. Matt and Ryan stood there, silhouetted against the outside lights. They hadn't come to talk, they were armed. Ryan held a small black pistol, his hand shaking violently. Matt's face was a cold, terrifying mask of fury I'd never seen before, a stranger wearing my husband's skin. It's too late for talking, Clara, Matt said, his voice a low, menacing growl. You should have just taken the vacation. It would have been easier for everyone. A tragic car accident on a winding mountain road. A terrible, final misfortune. Matt, this is insane. Ryan yelled, the gun wavering between me and the floor. His face was slick with sweat. We were just supposed to scare her. Get her committed. This wasn't the plan. I'm not a murderer. The plan changed when she started digging. Matt snarled back, turning on his brother, his eyes wild. She has the evidence. It's over unless we end this now. Now give me the gun. You can never do what needs to be done. You never could. He took a step towards Ryan, his hand outstretched. As they argued, the sound of sirens pierced the night air, faint at first, then growing rapidly louder, a screaming chorus of approaching justice. Ryan's face went as white as chalk. You called the cops? He screamed at me, his voice cracking with panic and betrayal. In a blind, explosive rage, Matt lunged for the gun. There was a frantic struggle, a tangle of limbs. A single, deafening shot rang out, the sound impossibly loud in the confined space of our modern living room. Ryan let out a sharp cry and crumpled to the polished concrete floor, clutching his thigh, blood welling up between his fingers. Matt stood over him, panting, the gun now firmly in his hand. He turned, raising the weapon, pointing it directly at my heart just as a cacophony of shouts and the heavy thud of boots echoed from the doorway. Police officers in tactical vests swarmed into the house, their own weapons drawn, laser sights painting red dots on Matt's chest. "Drop the weapon. Drop it now." The world froze. Matt's eyes met mine over the barrel of the gun. In that final fractured second, I saw not the man I married, but a cornered animal, consumed by greed and desperation. Then with a look of utter defeat he let the gun clatter to the floor. The aftermath was a media circus. Tech Titans murder plot. Ethereum scandal rocks city. The headlines screamed. Matt was charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, illegal possession of a firearm, grand larceny, embezzlement, securities fraud, and a dozen other financial crimes. The video recording I made captured his entire damning confession. It would have been easier for everyone. A tragic car accident, sealing his fate. Ryan wounded and turning state's evidence to save himself from a murder conspiracy charge, gave a full confession, implicating Matt and Isla in the entire embezzlement scheme. He confirmed under oath that while he knew about and participated in the gaslighting campaign, he had no prior knowledge of the murder attempts until I confronted him at the coffee shop. Isla was arrested at her pristine home, charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and being an accessory after the fact. Her marriage to Ryan, already a hollow shell built on mutual avarice, was obliterated. The life they had built on a foundation of lies and stolen money collapsed into dust and handcuffs. I filed for divorce immediately. With the overwhelming evidence I provided, I was granted a swift divorce, full legal and physical custody of Leo, and a significant portion of the remaining marital assets, which were now deeply entangled in Ethereum's bankruptcy and the government's asset forfeiture proceedings. The once valuable tech unicorn was revealed to be a hollowed-out shell, its reputation destroyed, its investors facing massive losses. I sold the beautiful, cold, modern death trap of a house and used the money to buy a small, secure and sunny condo in a friendly, anonymous neighborhood. Leo started at a new preschool and slowly the fear in his eyes was replaced by laughter. The constant gnawing dread in my own gut slowly receded, replaced by a weary, hard-won sense of safety. Matt is currently in a maximum security detention center, awaiting trial on a mountain of charges that will likely see him imprisoned for decades, if not the rest of his life. Ryan, facing a considerable prison sentence of his own, is a physically and emotionally broken man, crippled by his gunshot injury and consumed by guilt and regret. Isla will also see the inside of a federal prison for her role in the financial crimes. As for me, I'm slowly learning to trust my instincts again, to believe in the evidence of my own eyes. The woman who wrote off the first accident is gone. In her place is a survivor, someone who knows with chilling certainty that the most dangerous monsters aren't found in shadows or under the bed. They share your bed, they carry your last name, and they smile while plotting your end.